Greetings from our channel again. The greatest hidden romance in Hollywood took place in the background for 27 years. There were 9 films, innumerable private moments, and an unspoken love between Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy. She was unable to publicly grieve him when he passed away in 1967. The truth now comes to light regarding their last days together, the last meal she prepared for him, his eerie parting remarks, and the reasons the woman who had loved him for almost 30 years decided to say farewell by herself. First, let's talk about Katharine Hepburn. She was born in Hartford, Connecticut, on May 12, 1907. She came from an affluent, independent, and unique family. Her father, Dr. Thomas Hepburn, was a physician who discussed health issues that most people shunned, such as venereal illnesses, in an honest manner. Katharine Martha Hepburn, her mother, advocated for birth control and women's rights. Big ideas and influential people were always present in their home. Katharine had a really unusual upbringing. Her parents shaved her head when she was 5 years old because they believed it would benefit her intellect. She frequently ran around the neighborhood naked, shocking everyone but her parents. She was expelled from school multiple times as a result of their encouragement to speak up, even when it went against the grain. She once spearheaded a demonstration against required church attendance when she was 12 years old. Due to their wealth, the family took frequent trips. Additionally, Katharine had traveled to 23 countries and acquired 4 languages by the time she was 14 years old. When she was 13, her life took a permanent turn. She discovered her older brother, Tom, on April 3, 1921. Deceased. He had apparently committed suicide. Katharine was deeply hurt by this loss, and for years she even acted as though her birthday was November 8, which was actually his birthday. Her family discussed mental health in an open manner despite the sadness, which was extremely uncommon in those days. Katharine claimed that this candor eventually assisted her in managing the stresses of life. From an early age, Katharine had a passion for performing. She composed and performed a play in her family's barn when she was 9 years old. In addition to creating her own clothes, she included a dramatic fall at the end of the performance. 50 children paid a nickel each to watch as they landed in a mound of hay. She founded the Barnstormers, a drama club, at Bryn Mawr School when she was 16. She performed a portion of the lead role, hanging upside down, in their debut performance, Hamlet. The audience adored it. The company later performed daring pieces, one of which was about labor rights and resulted in the actors being suspended. Katharine, however, continued. It was difficult to get into the New York theater, but she brought the play to local union halls and performed it there. One of her many parts ended when she unintentionally lit her co-star's wig on fire. Finally, in 1932, she got her big break with the play The Warrior's Husband. For the part, she had to jump downstairs with a stag on her shoulders. She trained with a circus strongman to get ready. She impressed everyone at her audition by adding a somersault at the bottom. Audiences adored her confidence and enthusiasm, and the performance was a success. She cracked her nose after being struck in the face by a spear during one performance. On stage, she reset it. Continued, receiving applause from the audience. RKO Pictures took notice of her performance. She was asked to participate in a screen test for the film A Bill of Divorce. The initial test was a complete failure. She ripped her clothing, knocked over lights, and struck the lead actor so hard that he suffered a nosebleed. Although she believed her opportunity had passed, filmmaker George Cukor recognized her talent. He persuaded the studio to try her again. Katharine was ready this time. She carried out the entire script, including the male roles, in addition to her portion. Everyone was in awe. The first scenes were shot in September 1932. Katharine insisted on performing her own stunts and made $1,500 a week. Although it irritated her co-stars, she even changed a few of her lines, which elevated her performance. When the film was released on September 30, 1932, critics praised her. She was described as an actor with passion and profound insight by the New York Times. Katharine Hepburn's remarkable Hollywood career started shortly after she was signed to a long-term contract by RKO. She was cast in the film Morning Glory in 1933. Since she was still relatively new to Hollywood at the time, she wasn't even suited for the character of Eva Lovelace. At RKO, it was intended for Constance Bennett, a well-known actress. Katharine, however, noticed the script on the producer's desk one day. She brazenly informed him, "I want this role," after reading it and falling in love. She landed the part because of her confidence. Katharine experienced a severe health scare before to the commencement of filming. Due to a uterine issue, she required surgery and was extremely ill. Everyone was frightened for her, but she didn't give up. She demonstrated the tenacity that would characterize her career a few months later when she got out of bed to go to the premiere of one of her earlier films. Morning Glory took just 17 days to shoot when it was completely finished. From start to finish, the director allowed her to act in order. It enabled her to give life to the role. Katharine gave a fantastic performance. Just 2 years after beginning her film career, she took home the Best Actress Oscar in 1934. Later, The Ceremony became her thing, although she didn't even go. At the time, this was the quickest an actress had ever won an Oscar. However, things weren't always simple. Katharine had a difficult period in her career following her significant victory. Between 1934 and 1938, she starred in a number of unsuccessful films. One of them, Bringing Up Baby, 1938, lost a lot of money at the time but is today regarded as a classic. Despite being well-made, other movies like Stage Door and Holiday didn't draw enough audiences to theaters. The situation deteriorated to the point where a group of theater owners referred to her as box office poison in a public advertisement in 1938. She was quite embarrassed by this. Katharine's personality was a contributing factor. She didn't behave like a normal movie star. She refused to comply with the press, wore slacks rather than dresses, and avoided wearing makeup. A photographer's camera was once thrown into a river by her. She was perceived as being too obstinate and self-reliant, which hurt her popularity. At age 31, her career appeared to be over when RKO terminated her contract. But rather than give up, Katharine took a risk. She took charge of her future by using her funds to pay $75,000 to buy out her contract. The Philadelphia Story, a drama written in 1939, marked the beginning of her comeback. Philip Berry wrote it specifically for her, and it was a Broadway hit. For Katharine, this was her opportunity to go back to Hollywood. Howard Hughes helped her purchase the play's film rights. She then struck a wise agreement with MGM. On certain terms, she sold them the rights. She got to pick the director and co-stars, and she was required to be the lead in the film. MGM approved, and Katharine chose Cary Grant and James Stewart to co-star with George Cukor as the director. The film was a huge hit when it was released in 1940. In addition to earning millions of dollars, it nominated Katharine for another Oscar. Her career was totally transformed by this movie. She went from being a box office loser to becoming one of Hollywood's most well-liked celebrities. Her return demonstrated her resilience and her astuteness in seizing control of her career. In the meantime, Spencer Tracy was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, on April 5, 1900. His mother, Caroline Brown, had converted to Christian Science, while his father, John Edward Tracy, worked as a truck salesman. Spencer was a wild and restless child. Everyone around him was irritated by his troublemaking and hatred of school. In an attempt to soothe him, his parents sent him to live with Dominican nuns when he was 9 years old. Later, Spencer made a joke about how he just continued his education to learn how to read movie subtitles. Due in part to his father's excessive drinking, Spencer's family relocated frequently to Milwaukee. Despite his difficult life, Spencer found happiness in movies. He would repeatedly watch movies at the local cinemas, learning the scenes so he could perform them for his friends. He used movies as an escape, which led to a life-defining love. But for him, school remained a disaster. During his brief stay in Kansas City, where his family resided for a few months, he changed schools at least 6 times. He found it difficult to stay focused on his studies wherever he went. The First World War was still going on when he turned 18. Despite joining the Navy with his friend Pat O'Brien, Spencer never saw combat. He was released in 1919 after serving at a Navy yard in Virginia. His father encouraged him to complete his education when he left the Navy. In the end, Spencer enrolled in Wisconsin's Ripon College with the intention of studying medicine. But after he performed in a college play, everything was different. Spencer felt for the first time that he had discovered his calling. Spencer held a variety of odd occupations before to becoming an actor. He worked as a janitor, cleaning bathrooms and floors, and as a bellhop, carrying bags at hotels. He even performed short shows for local audiences as a magician. Glitzy, but they gave Spencer a lot of insight into common people. Later on, his performance felt genuine and relatable because of this realization. Spencer's big Broadway break came in 1930. In the play The Last Mile, he portrayed a prisoner on death row. John Ford, a well-known director, was impressed by the performance and decided to cast him in the film Up the River. For Spencer, this was the beginning. In Hollywood. He produced 25 movies for Fox over 5 years, but none of them elevated him to stardom. Although a few films, such as 1933's The Power and the Glory, suggested what he could do, he was confined to minor, unmemorable roles. After a while, Spencer had had enough of being ignored. He took a significant risk in 1935 by terminating his contract with Fox. When MGM gave him a chance, it paid off. Fury, 1936, his debut film there, was a success. It displayed Spencer's manner, which seemed entirely natural. His career took off after that. Being the first actor to win 2 consecutive Oscars, Spencer created history. In 1937, he portrayed a good-hearted fisherman in Captain's Courageous. His second role was that of a sympathetic priest in Boys Town, 1938. Audiences adored him, and these roles demonstrated his versatility. Spencer was a legend by the 1950s. He continued to play difficult parts, such as the gruff sheriff in Bad Day at Black Rock, 1955, and the father in Father of the Bride, 1950. A whole new generation of actors were influenced by his organic, nuanced acting approach. But there were many highs and lows throughout Tracy's life. On September 12, 1923, he married Louise Treadwell, whom he had met in a theater company. They fell in love quickly and married quickly in between 2 shows. On June 26, 1924, John was born. They were first ecstatic, but their euphoria was short-lived. Louise saw something odd when John was 10 months old. Loud noises did not cause him to react. They discovered that he was totally deaf, even when a door slammed close to his cot. The couple was devastated by this news. Louise made the decision to assist John in whatever way she could in spite of the heartache. After learning about deaf education, she put in a lot of effort to help him. To manage. He found it difficult to connect with John, and his guilt made him drink even more. Years later, they discovered that Usher syndrome, a hereditary disorder that also caused vision issues, was the source of John's deafness. John, however, grew up tough. He went to school, worked at Disney, learned to talk, and even claimed to have lived a full life. However, Spencer's sense of failure as a father was constant. He carried that shame with him forever. On July 1, 1932, amid a difficult period in their marriage, their second child, Susie, was born. Spencer spent less time at home because he was concentrating on his acting career. He and Louise had already split up by that point. Although they briefly reconciled in 1935, their marriage never fully recovered. By the 1940s, they were living together. Louise lived in the family home, while Spencer stayed in motels or rental houses. However, they never got divorced. Spencer could not think about it because he was a Catholic. Even though they were no longer together, Louise remained faithful. Despite their differences, Spencer encouraged Louise to assist other deaf kids. To assist families like theirs, she founded the John Tracy Clinic in 1942. Spencer frequently commended her efforts and donated funds to the clinic. Louise, their 2 children, and his brother received his entire wealth upon his death in 1967. It demonstrated how much he still cared for his family despite their separation. Spencer also battled drinking for a long time. He was a heavy drinker who frequently went on extended binges. He would spend days locking himself in hotel rooms with whiskey bottles. He would occasionally drink continuously in the bathtub without even getting out. His drinking led to violent outbursts and interfered with his work. He once vanished for 2 weeks during a 1934 movie shoot. His sadness made matters worse, and he was sued while performing in the production. Guilt about his marriage, his faith, and his son tormented him. He used harmful medicines to get through the day and hardly slept. On the set of Woman of the Year at MGM Studios in September 1941, Katharine Hepburn first encountered Spencer Tracy. This encounter resulted in a memorable Hollywood collaboration and a 26-year romance. Known for her self-assurance and distinctive style, Hepburn was 34 years old, recently divorced, and always wore pants and loafers. Tracy was already well known at MGM at the age of 41. Despite his unhappy marriage, Hepburn remarked, "I'm afraid I'm a bit tall for you, Mr. Tracy," when they first met. In response, producer Joseph L. Mankiewicz said, "Don't worry, Kate, he'll cut you down to size with ease." This light-hearted conversation alluded to their relationship in real life as well as in their movies. In fact, Hepburn had organized this encounter. She had tried to cast Tracy in the Philadelphia narrative a year prior, and she had wanted to work with him for years. When that failed, she persuaded MGM to purchase Woman of the Year for $150,000, dividing the price between herself and the screenplay in exchange for the freedom to select the director and co-star. However, their initial encounter wasn't as easy as the narrative usually implies. Tracy, who has a tendency to be moody, first disliked Hepburn. Her demeanor was excessively exaggerated, and he found her accent unpleasant. "How can I do a picture with a woman who has dirt under her fingernails and who is all hands?" he even asked George Stevens, the director. Their relationship was chilly throughout the first week of filming, and they hardly interacted off camera. However, everything changed during the second week. As they laughed together and referred to each other as Spence and Kate, they became inseparable. Later, Hepburn said that she wanted to prove herself because she was impressed by Tracy's acting ability. Tracy, meanwhile, was irritated by Hepburn's aristocratic airs but also found her directness refreshing. On set, their chemistry was evident despite these conflicting emotions. George Stevens, the director, said it was effortless and natural. Strengthened their bond. Tracy once became upset with Hepburn for touching him in a scene. "Don't touch me unless it's in the script," he yelled. Unfazed, Hepburn started purposefully rubbing up against him in each take, giving their scene a light-hearted tension. Everyone could see their bond by the third week of filming. They frequently sat in Tracy's car at the studio until late at night, spending a lot of time together after work. Since Tracy was still married, this caused some people to take notice. Early in October, his wife, Louise Tracy, paid a visit to the set, generating an uncomfortable tension. Hepburn stayed in her dressing room that day and completely avoided her. Their collaboration on screen turned into a legend. They collaborated on 9 films over a 25-year period, from Woman of the Year in 1942 to Guess Who's Coming to Dinner in 1967, just 17 days before Tracy passed away. Their films demonstrated their remarkable versatility, ranging from dramas to romantic comedies. However, Desk Set and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, their last 2, were produced at different studios. This change demonstrated that MGM's appeal extended beyond a single studio and signaled the waning of their control. Among their most well-known productions are George Cukor's Pat and Mike, 1952, and Adam's Rib, 1949. Playing married attorneys on opposing sides of a court case, they humorously yet poignantly addressed gender equality issues in Adam's Rib. In this iconic moment, the film's feminist ideas are delightfully highlighted by a surprise witness, a lady who has the ability to hoist Tracy's character over her head. Hepburn portrayed a talented athlete in Pat and Mike, showcasing her actual athletic prowess in sports like tennis and golf. Her character even reverses typical gender norms in one memorable episode by protecting Tracy's from 2 assailants. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, their last movie, was their biggest box office hit. At the time, it addressed the issue of interracial marriage. Tracy gives a passionate monologue about marriage and love in one poignant sequence. Hepburn subsequently stated that she could never see that moment again after Tracy's death, as she listened in silence while crying. Their movies were generally well received by critics and viewers alike. After a difficult time in the late 1930s, Hepburn's career was revived by the success of Woman of the Year, which brought in over $2.7 million. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner became the highest-grossing movie of 1967 with a gross of nearly $56 million, while Adam's Rib got one of their most cherished flicks. However, not all of their films were successful. Even Elia Kazan, the filmmaker, didn't appreciate the 1947 film The Sea of Grass. However, some of their lesser-known movies, such as Pat and Mike, have been reassessed over time and are now regarded as classics. Their partnerships received a great deal of recognition in the form of prizes. Tracy received nominations for State of the Union, Pat and Mike, and Woman of the Year. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner was Hepburn's second Oscar win, but it was more for her career as a whole than for this particular movie. For almost 30 years, Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy were in love. This was no ordinary friendship. Even while they had a strong emotional bond, after the first few years, their physical intimacy began to wane. But their relationship remained strong. Hepburn once claimed that she would have done anything for Tracy because she had a special connection to him. However, their connection wasn't simple. Tracy struggled with depression and drinking, and Hepburn frequently took care of him when he was at his lowest. Tracy once struck her during a drunken outburst at a motel. Hepburn showed him how much she loved him by being by his side and without even bringing it up to him. Because Tracy was married and his Catholic faith prevented him from divorcing his wife, Louise Treadwell, they kept their love a secret. When they traveled, they stayed in different hotels and sometimes lived in different houses. They came separately on film shoots and kept their relationship a secret. They had perfected the art of being invisible, Tracy once joked. They were also assisted in keeping the secret by the studios. At the time, studio executives kept the press under control and ensured that reporters didn't write about their affair because scandals might destroy careers. Nevertheless, Hollywood knew. Their intimacy was frequently observed by co-stars and crew members, chatting and holding hands during lunch breaks. However, most people outside of Hollywood were unaware of it. Due to pressure from the studios, even gossip columnists, who often enjoyed scandals, remained silent. In the 1960s, Spencer Tracy's health began to deteriorate. He finally succumbed to years of disease and hardship. He had significant issues by 1963, when he was 63. Things deteriorated further in 1965. Tracy's prostate required urgent surgery. He spent 10 days in a coma following the procedure. A lot of people believed he wouldn't live. When he finally awoke, he was considerably weaker. By 1966, he was frequently admitted to the hospital due to the excruciating discomfort in his heart. His diabetes resulted in persistent nerve discomfort. He was really thin and had lost a lot of weight. Tracy missed out on major film roles as a result, including appearing in The Cincinnati Kid. It's a Mad World was his final major motion picture prior to Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. He was only able to work a few hours a day even then. Everyone assumed that his acting career was gone, but he shocked everyone by accepting a final part opposite Katharine Hepburn in 1967. During these years, Hepburn was more than just a co-star. She sacrificed her profession to care for Tracy. To be near him, she moved into a cottage adjacent to his house. She prepared his meals, gave him his prescription, and assisted him with chores he was unable to complete on his own every day. Tracy required over a dozen prescription drugs for diabetes and other conditions. Hepburn documented everything and even remained up late looking for methods to improve his condition. She made sure he couldn't get more booze and threw out all the alcohol in the house when his drinking got out of control. For her, it wasn't simple. It was terrible to watch Tracy's health deteriorate. She once remarked that she remained by his side even though it seemed like seeing a magnificent king gradually lose everything. When he was unable to leave, she manufactured excuses and kept him away from the media. She would rent a restaurant so he could feel at ease if they went there. In 1967, Tracy completed filming Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. He passed away 17 days later. Hepburn prepared his favorite dinner for him the night before, and they discussed the film. He made fun of the fact that he had not won another Oscar. He went to the kitchen to prepare tea later that night since he was having trouble falling asleep. After hearing him, Hepburn inquired if he needed assistance. "Go back to bed," he said. His final words to her were those. After a little while, she heard a crash. She discovered Tracy on the ground next to him, holding a cup of broken teeth. It was too late when she attempted to assist. Early that morning, he passed away after a heart attack. Before the media arrived, Hepburn made a quick phone call to his wife, Louise, and then departed the house in silence. While she grieved alone, she allowed his family to publicly mourn. On June 13, 1967, Katharine Hepburn did not attend the funeral for Spencer Tracy. She made this decision out of respect for Tracy's wife, Louise, and their family, despite the fact that they had been together for years. Hepburn paid her goodbyes the day before the funeral, on June 12, instead of attending the funeral. She went to the mortuary where Tracy's body was kept. She left early and got there around 6 in the morning. With Phyllis Wilborn, her secretary. She spent almost an hour alone with Tracy after the personnel granted her solitude. "I stood by his coffin and said goodbye to the man I had loved for 27 years, she subsequently recalled. "I put my hand to his face. The temperature was really low. I realized then that he was truly gone." Hepburn continued to keep quiet about their relationship even after Tracy's death, only discussing it in public following Louise Tracy's death in 1983. She evaded inquiries about their romance for 16 years. She would only discuss Tracy's acting prowess and their collaborations on films when someone brought him up. She didn't want to ruin his legacy or his family in any way. Tracy gave Hepburn a gold ring, which she kept during this period. As a silent reminder of their love, she wore it. Occasionally, when his name was called during an interview, she would touch the ring. It was a modest, personal gesture that demonstrated his continued significance to her. Hepburn merely stated, "I loved Spencer Tracy," when she eventually discussed their relationship in her autobiography. "For him, I would have done anything." Everything she had long kept to herself was encapsulated in one single sentence. It demonstrated how much she loved him and how much she gave up to keep his memory and family safe. Hepburn talked more about their life together as she grew older. She spoke of her support for Tracy during his battles with depression and drinking. Said she made it her goal to support him and frequently found him in difficult times. "I wanted him to be okay because I loved him," she once stated. Despite their strong relationship, they never shared a home. Hepburn felt that by maintaining separate residences, they were able to maintain their relationship while also gaining the independence they required. Hepburn also considered how Lewis might have suffered as a result of their relationship. "I'm not proud to have contributed to the suffering of another human being," she acknowledged. This demonstrated her remorse for the circumstance. She genuinely cherished Tracy. She also recalled fond recollections of their time together, such as the calm afternoons they spent reading scripts together or the way he called her red due to her hair. A glimpse of their love was revealed by these insignificant occurrences. Hepburn thought Tracy was the best actor she had ever encountered until the end of her life. She talked proudly about their final picture together and his roles in movies like Judgment at Nuremberg. Even after he was gone for decades, guess who's coming to him remained constant?